9 years and counting. That is how long it has been since the release of Persona 5. Yet, we still haven't gotten any news for the much anticipated Persona 6. Instead, we got a lot of spin-offs during this almost decade-long wait. From PQ2 that is adorably stuck in 3DS, a dancing game that ghosted us on that fighting arena we actually wanted, and a gacha game with Persona 5 The Phantom X. Oh gosh, there goes my social life. Fans have been clamoring for Persona 6, but the answer Atlus gave us is Persona 3 Reload. Surely, after this, we're getting P6, right? Looks like Atlus can only count up to 5. Seriously speaking though, is Persona 4 Revival delaying the release of Persona 6? Truthfully, with P4R's reveal, P6 is getting pushed further back. It's even reported by Sega that P4R will most likely come out during or after the fiscal year of 2027. Does this mean Persona 4 Revival will come out 2 years from now? That's too long of a wait. Will Persona 6 get pushed back to 2030? No, that's not going to happen. First off, fiscal year 2027 isn't that far away, since Sega's fiscal years end in March. So technically speaking, we are in fiscal year 2026. With this, it's safe to assume that Persona 4 Revival will release on April 2026 at the earliest and March 2027 at the latest. That is, if we don't have any global phenomena that will delay the game. It's only a year of waiting, and that's not too shabby, especially with what we got on the reveal. While short, it did tell us a lot of things, which I've talked about in the last video. So even though Persona 4 Revival pushed the release date of Persona 6, it's really not by much. There's actually a much deeper reason why Atlus wants Persona 4 Revival more than Persona 6. But before that though, if you're excited to play Persona 5 The Phantom X, which is releasing either tomorrow or today, whenever this video releases I guess, then like this video and join Otaku for more Persona content.
Whose voices are those? Don't tell me we got an audience.
If I ask you what is the most popular franchise in Sega and you answered Sonic the Hedgehog, you would be technically correct. However, Atlus's IP such as the Mega 10 series, Metaphor, and especially the Persona games have outpaced the Blue Blur in terms of sales. This is according to Sega's financial report, hence why we've seen news about Sega deciding on further expanding Atlus's development teams, as virtually all of their games have been critically acclaimed with massive financial achievements, reporting that Persona 3 Reload sold around 2 million copies, and more surprisingly, Persona 5 Royal has now sold 7.2 million copies. The craziest part about this is that Royal sold more than 3 million copies since the previous report. Persona 5 has truly dominated the IP, and it's one of the most influential reasons why we haven't gotten any news regarding Persona 6, and instead we see ourselves maneuvering to a Persona 4 remake. P5R is still earning more than Atlus's latest titles. In fact, it performed better in sales than P3R. I know that a lot of us are tired of the Phantom Thieves, but we simply cannot deny its popularity and the hold it has, not only in Sega but in the whole video game culture. If we're going to add Persona 5 and Royal's total, they have already surpassed the 10 million milestone. Every time a new turn-based game is released, there's always a comparison being made to Persona 5. Even Metaphor was compared to it despite being a new IP. Heck, Expedition 33, which is not even a JRPG, had a lot of Persona 5 comparisons. This sales performance is also why Sega Atlus decided to pivot their attention from developing Persona 6 to remaking older Persona titles. Because one thing that they've learned from this is that Persona exponentially performed better in a multi-platform release, instead of being stuck as a PlayStation exclusive. Sega Atlus believed that taking these older games which were at their peak in the PS2 era can compete against newer titles. And they were right. Take Persona 5's number for example. During its debut in the PS4, it managed to reach 1.7 million copies. On the other hand, its multi-platform remaster sold 1.8 million. The PlayStation exclusivity actually held back the true potential of Persona games. Sega knows this, and has been proven correct with the sales number. Now, even though P3R sold less than Royal, their numbers are not to be ignored, because after selling 1 million copies in less than a week, it managed to sell another million. Repeat sales is one of the biggest reasons why Sega Atlus wants Persona 4 Revival more than P6. They were also proven with this number that the Persona series has a strong staying power, and the expansion DLCs are the way to go despite its infamy. They are earning significantly more because of Persona's strong repeat sales. Having a game that averages 1 million copies each year with no development costs is every gaming company's dream. Not to mention, Persona 3 Portable is readily available in all supported platforms. And yet, people are eagerly buying Reload to experience P3's story in the best way possible. And this is the marketing decision that Sega Atlus have for Persona 4 as well. That despite Persona 4 Golden releasing on Steam and selling 500,000 copies, they know that players will also buy a remake of Persona 4. So much so that they strongly believe that Persona 4 has a better staying power than Persona 3, and could even potentially reach the heights of Persona 5. Hence why Atlus is pushing for P4R instead of P6. Do remember that before Atlus started milking the adventures of the Phantom Thieves, they rode the OG workhorse that is Persona 4. In fact, P4 and P5 have a lot of things in common, from recognizable characters, memes that broke the metaverse, spin-offs to keep fans fed between main titles, and most importantly, the money it earned for Daddy Atlus. P4 walked so P5 could steal its way into every genre, be it dancing, fighting, and crossing over in every game imaginable. For them, it's less risky to remake Persona 4 than going directly with Persona 6, especially considering that it will forever be chased by the overwhelming success of Persona 5. Think of Final Fantasy, where its titles are always compared with a fan favorite 7. Even Like a Dragon fans are debating whether or not Nagoshi-san's departure is affecting the quality of its recent titles, where Yakuza 0 and 7 are being thrown in the argument. But remaking Persona 4 first, before releasing Persona 6, takes the pressure off from the team even by a little bit. Persona 6 has already been in pre-production since 2019, and if the rumors are true, with P6 having dual protagonists and a larger explorable city, P Studio is going to take all the time and money they need to ensure that Persona 6 will live up to the success of Persona 5. Remaking Persona 4 is a great solution to this issue as it fills the production gap to prevent franchise drought. Additionally, the developers don't have to make a game from scratch, as the layout, theme, story, and characters already exist. Moreover, it is cost-effective, since P4R will most likely reuse a lot of Reload's assets and will run on the same engine, thus accelerating production that will allow Atlus to maintain revenue flow while developing Persona 6 for much longer. Also, Atlus focusing more on Persona 4 Revival doesn't mean that other Persona games are getting ignored. It always boils down to the game's market reach, the existing player base, and the technicality for remaking the older titles. As Wada-san had said, Persona 1 and 2 will definitely have their time in the limelight. The most challenging task in remaking Persona 1 and 2 is that their gameplay is much more different. It will need major reconstruction from its narrative and gameplay design. Whether or not they'll direct these titles to adapt the mechanics introduced in Persona 3 like the social link and the calendar system, given the fact that both of these games have a more direct narrative. But with Persona 4, Sega Atlus is assured that the production is stable and will net them a good amount of revenue to further support the future games that Atlus had long planned. This is the true impact of Persona 4 Revival on Persona 6 and other Persona-related games. Persona 4 has weathered Atlus's worst storms, and if it weren't for this game, then we might not have seen Persona 5, Metaphor, and even Shin Megami Tensei 5. Atlus holds P4 in high regard, and has loved the game so much so that they are willing to focus more on remaking it than moving forward with Persona 6. You may simply call it favoritism, but their hearts don't lie. In fact, it's burning with passion, with a desire to tell the story of the investigation team in the best way possible. Seeing that with the success and reach of Persona 5 Royal and Persona 3 Reload, they want their newer fans to also experience the wholesome bond of Persona 4, a lonely town filled with heartwarming people who all went through the challenge of facing the hard cold truth. Atlus wants to remake Persona 4 first because its impact as a game reigns true even to this day. And hey, just because P4R is releasing first, that doesn't mean that P6 development stopped altogether. I'm certain that upon P4R's release, P6 will be right around the corner. Maybe it will launch on 2027 or 2028. But it is kind of poetic that Persona 4 will once again be the bridge between main titles. For now, we have Persona 5 The Phantom X, and let me tell you how awesome this game is despite being a gacha. If you're curious about that, then check this video out. Join Otaku Define for more Persona content. This is Math, and stay awesome, my dudes.